Joyride, 1957, a novel of intrigue by J.P. Wasmiller, Chapter 72. Across ICU and James' room, there was no hiss of the respirator, but no nurse could hear with all the commotion. Within about 5 minutes, an eyelid opened. It was James' left one. Within a few seconds, his right one opened. Then his hands and then his feet moved. He noticed he was struggling to breathe, and he ripped at his tube. Finally, he yanked the endotracheal tube from his throat and yipped as the tape pulled at his skin. He heard constant yelling from outside his room, wherever that was. Then he rubbed his head and felt the dressing on his head. What surprised him was that his headache was gone. He pumped his fist in the air and sat on the edge of the bed. His foot kicked up against his bag under his bed. After several seconds of thought, he decided he better get out of wherever he was or whatever hospital he was in as soon as possible. He stood, but was a little wobbly. He grabbed the bed rail, then swung his bag up on the bed. Nothing seemed to be missing. He put on a dark shirt and dark pants, shoes and socks. He then carried his bag to the door and peered out. He saw no one, but heard a lot of commotion coming from across the ICU unit. He eased his body out of the room and then walked briskly toward an exit sign. No one seemed to notice, and soon he was in the back parking lot. He spotted a silver facial Vega and slid in behind the seat. He was about to hotwire the car, but then noticed the key in the ignition. He started the engine and drove out of the lot. He drove a couple of blocks toward downtown, now remembering he must be somewhere in Montana. As he drove through a quiet neighborhood, he saw a light on in one of the living room bay windows. He drove several more blocks and then found an open Shell station. He needed gas and food and got out and had the facial Vega filled with ethyl gas. It was 29.9 cents per gallon. The house with the window lit that James drove by happened to be that of the black-haired nurse. She was sitting in her white terry cloth bathrobe at the kitchen table, sipping on a cup of black coffee. Her husband, as she had predicted, was snoring loudly in the bedroom. As she stared absent-mindedly out the window into the dark night, she recognized Dr. Duran's car, the silver facial Vega, drive by. She knew it could be the only one in town and wondered what on earth her doctor friend was up to now. She threw on her jeans and a shirt and ran out to her blue and white Metropolitan. She fired it up and headed in the direction she had seen the doctor's car go. She soon found it, located at the Shell station. She drove up to the curb, parked, and walked briskly to the car, which was still being filled with ethyl gas by the attendant. She saw no one inside, so she got in and sat in the front passenger seat. She waited several minutes, then saw what she knew had to be a ghost, carrying a bag of food out of the station. He sat down in the driver's seat and began munching on an open bag of potato chips. "Who are you?" he asked her bluntly, noticing she was a real beauty. "I'm Bree," she said, offering her hand. "How did you get out of the—" "I just got up and walked out. How do you know—" "I was your nurse for 2 days. How did you get out of—" "You were in coma for 2 days," she said. "I was?" he said. He could not stop staring at her braless white t-shirt. In fact, she noticed. "Yes, you had an operation, a brain operation. My doctor, Dr. Duran, performed it. We all thought you were going to die," she said, "and this is his car." "Just like Kansas," he said. "What?" she said. "Thank him for the car, and thank you for your care." She slid onto the console, put her arm around him, and squeezed her body against his. "Are you all right?" she said, checking his pulse, 70 and regular. She made a mental note. "Let me see your eyes." He stared at her, and for some inexplicable reason their lips met and lingered for several seconds. Her gentle lips stretched as the two pulled apart. He kept staring at her eyes. "Your pupils are all right, and so are your lips," she said, trying to maintain some element of control. This was her patient, who had just stolen a car and a kiss. She should be calling the hospital and the police, but these actions were the farthest thing from her mind.